version of the Amur cousin. And they're sort of moving parallel with Sindile's eye line, so they're not actually walking towards him. They definitely don't know he's here though. I'm not sure if you can see how the light has changed. You can just see it catching the bottom of his beautiful golden pelage there. You probably saw it on my face, but that wouldn't have improved my looks much. But it certainly improves. It just makes them look so beautiful. Hello Ruth in the UK, you're asking about leopard identification and the spots just above the whiskers. You want to know, are they always identical left and right on a leopard? Ruth, they're not, no. Often 3-2, 1-3, 5-1, 4-3, you know, you can get any number of combinations. So Ruth, it's just purely a coincidence that he's got 3 on both sides, and he does actually have a fairly identical pattern on both sides, which is not. So, hi Lisa, you want to know basically, would Shadow survive, or would Sindile survive if Shadow died? And our Shadow, for those of you who don't know, is his mum. He's almost a year old, and so the chances are that he would be okay. I'd say the jury's out, to be honest. I'd say he's got a better than even chance of survival. You know, they would normally be with their mothers till they're at least 18 months old, especially the males, and then they hang around in her territory for a bit longer than that. So he's got about 6 months left of life lessons from his mum. But have chased their cubs out or left them from as early as 9 months. So that's normally females. The males don't tend to survive after that. They tend to be a bit like humans. They tend to develop a bit slower than the females do. But some female cubs have been left alone at 9 months, 10 months, and survived to adulthood, taken territories, and become mothers. Not at that age, of course, but eventually. Hello, Djuma in Oklahoma. You want to know if there's an age limit, sort of, before we'll allow children on drive. Djuma, it varies from lodge to lodge, but the general rule is that no children under 6 without their parents, certainly not without their parents. If you've got a well-behaved child that's 4, it doesn't make any difference. But what the cats do, they do respond to babies' distress calls. So a crying baby definitely would attract the attentions of a predator. I've seen it happen with male lions. I've seen it happen with female lions and leopards. And the chances of them jumping onto the vehicle to investigate are small, but you never want to take a chance. But once a child is... Sindile is not responding at all to his voice, and he was certainly the kid was on with the lions, the same vehicle with the lions earlier, and they didn't respond at all to him. So no, it's a baby's distress or baby's cry is definitely something you want to avoid a predator hearing. But once you've got a child who you can basically control, it's perfectly safe. And the advantage to that, of course, is that you want to expose kids to this wonderful environment as soon as possible, so that they grow up with a sort of inherent love of the wild and the animals of Africa. You can see that as that vehicle moved, Sindile spotted those impala again. He's gone down into the instinctual cat pose for stalking, but you'll notice that he's a little bit reticent about moving forward. So the update from Scott is that he's gone off to the Nkuhuma Pride. So I think while we wait and see what this leopard is going to do, I'm not going anywhere. Let's pop across to Scott and see what the Pride of Lions is doing, and then if they are doing what they normally do, we'll come back here and enjoy Sindile further as the sun sets to his back. See you just now.
Well, certainly some exciting prospects with you guys and Sindile with James. Over here with the Nkuhuma Pride, not too much is happening, although one lioness, one of the biggest lioness, the two adults, did get up and reposition earlier. I was hoping she was going to rally the rest of the pride along with her and start moving, but no luck just yet. They're busy basking in this beautiful winter's afternoon sunshine. Earlier there were some oxpeckers calling very nearby to us, and I was wondering whether they were just having a chat with one another, or if in fact they were feeding on some antelope nearby. The one lioness did keep looking in that direction, but wasn't compelled to move. But either way, the sound of those oxpeckers nearby could mean that there is potential prey not too far from here. Some of you may have counted and seen only 7 of the Nkuhuma lion over there, and that's because the other one is just over here. So there's all 8 of them, and the makeup of this pride, if you are joining for the first time, like I said, is 2 adult lioness, 3 fully grown adult or lioness, but they've yet to ever give birth, so they're coming of age at the moment and could start mating in the next couple of months for the first time. So there's 5 lionesses that are kind of fully grown, but 2 of which are only adults. Then there's young Junior, who's about 3.5 years old now, a young male, and then 2 younger sub-adult cubs at about 1.5 years of age that are also both lioness. That's a brown-hooded kingfisher we can hear cheeping loudly. And now also some oxpeckers chattering that you can possibly hear. I think even an elephant may have trumpeted behind us. So quite a lot of audio going on at the moment, and it's such a beautiful evening. It's dead, dead still, hardly a breath of wind. And you can see certainly if these lions or anything to gauge comfort by. It's a very, very comfortable afternoon here in the Sabi Sands. Well, seeing as though we can hear birds chattering, it would be a good time to answer Matt's question from Texas. Now, Matt's quite an avid birder, and he's got his bird list of birds that he has seen in the US, that he's kept up till date. And he's asking my opinion whether I think it's fair or not for him to make an African list of birds, even though it's unlikely that he'll ever come out to Africa. I think that's a great idea, and I certainly would do the same thing if I was you, Matt. That's the whole reason why Safari Live is great. It gives people an opportunity who may never come to Africa to experience what it's like to be on safari. So, excuse me, I certainly think, Matt, that you should start your South African list or African list and tick off as many birds as you can. And I guess one reason why doing these lists is important, and it's only a competition with yourself, really. You're not going to enter any competitions entering how many birds you've seen. But the great thing about building this list is that you'll be more likely to take a closer note at looking at birds, and that way be able to identify them for yourself. That way, when you are on future live safaris with us, you can identify a bird before I've even had a chance to, before the other presenters have even had a chance to. So I certainly think you should get that list going, Matt, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that idea. Well, things we can expect to see from these lions are a little bit more stretching and yawning. It's certainly getting to that stage of the evening where I wouldn't be surprised for them to get up and start moving. And judging by their bellies, they could do with the meal. They're not starving. They look comfortable at the moment, but certainly not full-bellied, which often leads to very, very lazy lions. Okay, well, I've just got a question through from Miss Jen in Dallas, and it's a question she asked James earlier, but I guess it will be interesting for all of you to hear the same question again and my answer to it. And she would like to know, how long after my training course did it take for me to become comfortable guiding guests? And I'd say after about 6 months, I started kind of getting the hang of it, but it's something that I think, like most things in life, can be worked on for an entire career, and a lot of it's luck. Some guests you get along with naturally meet people that sometimes you get along with very well, and then it's an easy job. But when the going's a little bit more difficult and people have got kind of different personalities and different agendas, then it can be a bit more difficult to show them a good time. So that is something that takes time. And then also, I guess, getting to know the property. Oh, we've got one lion up. And we may get to see a big yawn. There we go. Oh, wonderful. So this is the behavior that we were hoping for. Get ready for some screenshots. There we go. I'm going to get my camera out now and see if I can get one or two pictures. Or have you stopped yawning for now? So this is good signs. This looks like one of the 3 younger lioness, still in great condition. Not that their mothers are any worse, but they do have a few more years under their belt. Well, looking for lions on Twitter, couldn't hear me earlier and would like to know if Junior's around. All 8 of them are here. And it's only been on a few occasions that he has split off from the pride that I've heard of. I've only ever seen him with the pride, never alone, but there has a couple of months ago there was a sighting where he was chased away by his fathers, so that was quite interesting, but then slunk back towards the pride. It's no surprise that his fathers have started to chase him out. He is coming of age, and that means his fathers should not tolerate his presence, because that runs the risk of him mating with his mothers and sisters when they come into season.
I was going to say they wouldn't beat us. They have 2 vehicles
And
3 at the moment.
we're not going to go anywhere, so don't you worry. We're going to stay with these lions and wait for them to get up. And I'm told some of the beautiful golden afternoon sunlight that we can see behind us is beaming down on Sindile. Enjoy.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to this spectacular sunset sighting. How's that for alliteration? Of this beautiful leopard. We're just coming off the sun onto little Sindile, who is lying as regally as a small leopard like he can. And he's got a very princely demeanour about him at the moment. I've attempted to take a photograph of him with my little camera, but failed, because it's just not quite of the same standard. Chandro's taken some good ones, and he's just being very obliging as he sits there. And wonderful to have that golden sunset light filtering through the spikethorn tree onto his face. Bye-bye. See ya. So that's one of the most experienced rangers or guides in, we were just chatting about guides before we left, one of the most experienced guides in probably South Africa, and if not the entire continent. He's been at it about 30 years now. Extremely professional man, a brilliant photographer, a chap called Lex Hess. Hello Linda in Shelbyville. You want to know when female leopards can normally start mating. Linda, I believe it's possible from about 2 years, but normally not before they're about 2.5, 3 years. When they're settled in a territory, they'll go into estrus, and a male will find them, or she'll actually seek out a male, and they'll breed. But normally, you know, possible from 2 years, probably more likely at 3. around us. So we're just going to be, I'm going to be quiet for the next 30 seconds or so. I just want you to have a listen to the immense peace of this afternoon with this glorious little leopard lying where he is. Very little sound actually. That's a Coqui Franklin. Coqui, Coqui, Coqui. That's where he gets his name from. Otherwise, gentle breeze from the southeast. Couple of Franklins in the distance. Some crickets calling, which is quite unusual for this time of year. Southern black tit calling. A waxbill in the distance. And Sindile having himself a very relaxed afternoon. You can see his little belly is quite full. I must say, this leopard really does make me want to get out of the car and wander over and give him a hug, but I don't suppose that would be the wisest thing in the world. Genevieve, you're asking about his hunger and relating that to him learning to hunt and that sort of thing while Shadow's still looking after him. If I understand you correctly, basically what will happen is that as we times by their mums, especially with the larger prey, so until about 18 months, the Shadow, who's his mum, or when he's about 18 months old, in fact, sorry, let me go back to that. At 12 months, he will probably start accompanying her on the hunt, so that'll be fairly soon. And she will then sort of run him through the basics of hunting. But he'll still start off catching small things, and eventually he'll move on to bigger stuff as he gets a bit bigger and a bit more skilled at stalking and that sort of thing. But his you can see his belly is full, and I'm pretty sure, you know, they haven't seen Shadow around here for a while. They did have tracks this morning, but you know, she won't bring food to him, she'll take him to food. So I think that full belly that he's got there is a result of his own skills, catching birds and little things like that. And so basically, I hope that answers your question, Genevieve. His success at hunting will not have too much to do with how hungry he is necessarily. It'll have to do with his experience, probably more than his hunger. I hope that answers your question. Hello, Joyce King. Joyce King, you're asking about two other male leopards, Quarantine and Nkuhuma. These are two leopards, for those of you who don't know, who were born to a female called Karula, who is in fact his grandmother. So they are his cousins. Yes, they're his cousins. And his... Yes, that's correct, isn't it? They're cousins. So I'm going to work it out. I'm just being stupid. Cousins for now. And they were seen at Londolozi, which is about... Joyce, that's about, as the crow flies, it depends on which part of Londolozi. Londolozi is a pretty big property. As the crow flies, it's only about 1.5 kilometers away to the corner, to the northern corner of Londolozi. If it's down to the Sand River, another 1.5 kilometers to the to the river, and then at Nkoro, which is just over there, so probably about the same distance, 1.5 to 2 kilometers as the crow flies. And you want to know how far could a leopard walk in a day? A leopard on patrol could walk at least 10 kilometers if it wanted to, at least if it chose to, especially in the evening time. So Londolozi and Nkoro are not far from here as the crow flies, and it would be very easy for a leopard to get there in less than a day. In fact, probably an hour or two. Sorry, I'm being a complete imbecile. The relationship of Nkuhuma and quarantine to Sindile is, of course, that of uncle. They are David in Michigan. I'm going to answer your question in two ways. You want to know, taking all the information on the big cats, both in captivity and in the wild, which ones have the most intelligence. Now, of course, intelligence is difficult to define by its very nature. So some people are socially intelligent, with a lot of EQ. Others have a higher IQ, which makes them generally better at maths and languages. Some people are very artistic, which makes them particularly intelligent in one way and perhaps not in others. I myself am completely devoid of any form of artistic intelligence whatsoever, so that's just an example. But in terms of animals like this, so what are we saying? Basically, I suppose what you mean is that when an animal is, how trainable are they? How easy are they to train to do things? Now, my first example of this comes from a chap who actually does big cat training in the United States for films. He's got a number of sort of rehabilitated animals, and whether or not you agree with it, they are held in captivity, which is perhaps not particularly pleasant at all, but he trains them for movies, and I've met him many years ago. And he said to me that a leopard has the same intelligence as a dolphin. He reckoned that they were highly intelligent. He said a lion was particularly dim-witted in terms of training. But that doesn't mean that a lion is dim-witted. All it means is that a lion is not necessarily trainable by a human being, which doesn't mean that it's stupid. So that's what that meant. Then I did, they've done some studies on various animals in terms of, Brent was actually part of a study where he filmed big cats and hyenas with cardboard cutouts of animals. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, what happened was that the lions, when they were shown a card, I'm just watching what Sindile is looking at, sorry. When the lions were shown a cardboard cutout of an impala, they'd chase it the first time and bash it and beat it up and destroy it. If you then showed them another cardboard cutout of an impala, they'd just keep doing that all day long. So they never learned that it was a cardboard cutout. Hyenas, and they wouldn't even go near it. So if I've got that correct, that's basically showed that the hyena had I suppose, as far as anthropomorphic intelligence goes, we'd say that a hyena was probably cleverer than a lion. That doesn't mean that it's cleverer in the environment in which it evolved and, in which it lives. So, I don't know, it's difficult to say. Tigers, I'm not sure. I think tigers are probably quite like lions. Jaguars apparently are particularly good on film. They tend to be less wild than leopard when they're raised in captivity. If you raise a leopard in captivity, apparently it will never quite tame. They always retain a very wild streak, and I think that's rather wonderful. So, unfortunately, a question like that, David, does inevitably involves a discussion of animals raised in captivity. But to get away from that, I would say a leopard has probably got to have its head screwed on very carefully, because it is not very big and lives on its own, and so they've got to be pretty clever and pretty sharp about what they do. Lions live in prides, they can depend on others, so perhaps in the narrow field of what we might call IQ, perhaps a leopard is a bit cleverer. I hope that gives you some kind of idea of what the answer might be. But short of getting them to write an IQ test, it's difficult to say. Bit of a breeze coming up as the sun goes down. Some lovely clouds off to the left, but I don't think there's a front coming in. I hope there isn't. Oh, marvelous sun. Andre, I will get. Isn't that beautiful? The sunset is always just that bit more impressive when there's a bit of weather in the air, when there's some clouds, some moisture. Yesterday it was very kind of... yesterday was a bit bland in comparison, I think. Not yesterday, 2 days ago when I was out. That's just beautiful. Sindile is still there, fear not. He's not quite as impressed by the setting sun as we are. In fact, he is. He's staring straight at it, which is quite sweet. Alright, we'll sneak a bit forward now and have a look at Sindile as he enjoys the sunset. The trick is to try and not approach him dead straight on, because that tends to be a lot more threatening than going sideways at him. Because remember, the Land Rover's got these two great big glass orbs in the front, the headlights. Is that right, Andre? Okay. There we go. So you see pretty much only in black and white, or certainly in two colors. I don't think you'd see this leopard lying here in the shade at all. He looks like he's formed out of the leaves that he's lying on. Wonderful coloration for this kind of habitat. As I was saying, the first time I'd noticed probably just before I went on leave was that their coloration seems to be more for the winter than it does for the summer, and I'll get on. I'll tell you a bit more about that just now. His attention, she'd call him with a little contact call. It's a little kind of that's the sort of noise that it makes. And yes, it actually probably doesn't sound much like that at all, but that's my attempt. But she would definitely call him with a vocalization or a little sort of contact call that he would know immediately, and he'd get up and probably go to her. But I think the fact that he's looking around is very typical leopard behavior, especially young leopard behavior. They sleep a lot, but they have to keep vigilant all the time. They've got to keep looking around, making sure that nothing's coming. If they hear a movement in the grass, they'll look up. If they don't sleep deeply like lions do. I've got very close to lions by mistake once, probably within 6 feet, with a group of 3 people with me. And look, we weren't talking, but we were walking normally, and those lions didn't wake up. You would never get anything like that close to a leopard. They're just that much more easily threatened because they're smaller and they live on their own. So, no, I think he's just being vigilant. Now, as I was saying, nice question from Tyler, age 12 in Ohio. Tyler, good one. You want to know, are leopards able to recognize leopards that are related to them? Tyler, they often are, you know, which doesn't seem to happen too much in a lot of other animals, but they can certainly recognize their mothers, obviously, and that lasts until late into life. Grandmothers, often, yes. I think Karula, who's Sindile's grandmother, would be able to recognize his smell, certainly, if not his sight. You know, I don't know if they've ever met. I don't think they have, but certainly they would probably recognize each other's smell or scent. Then I think if you went down to Nkuhuma and Quarantine, who are his uncles, as we know now, I don't. It's simply a function of 2 mothers who were related, their cubs who were related, and the dominant male of the area who was related to them all. And so, yes, they do definitely recognize each other. Alright, and while we carry on watching little Sindile in this beautifully camouflaged as he is, we're going to pop across to Scott with the lions, who are starting to get up and groom each other. We'll see you just now.
Well, you've joined at the perfect time. They are literally just beginning to get active, and I'm told you've been having some beautiful sights of both Sindile and the sunset with James. And aren't we lucky to have 2 vehicles sharing different events out here with you, all live. And the timing could not have been any better. Not Now, what gets tricky is that the area that they are heading into becomes quite thick. But looks like we may have a little bit of time on our side. The one lioness in front has just plopped down. And it's not uncommon for the lion to get up gradually, move a short distance, go back to sleep for a while, and kind of build up momentum. Is this one going to jump into the guari bush that it's sniffing? It could well. They sometimes really rub their bodies up against these trees to get their scent all over them. But not this time, it doesn't look like.
Go ahead.
I think already I know there's a brother.
I will do so that the call for action with the false alarm, they're back down again now.
And we haven't seen any cubs yet. And why is that? It's a great question, Sharon. There's 2 adult lionesses that are capable of giving birth. I'm not sure if both of them have one of the smaller cubs that are probably approaching 1.5 to 2 years of age. Either way, though, they should, in the very near future, be giving birth again. And I do agree it's a little bit overdue. Who knows why that is? I'm not sure, but it is a little bit overdue, you could say. Once a lioness has raised cubs to a point where they no longer require their immediate attention, they will then often mate again. 3 months later, after about a 100-day gestation period, they'll give birth again. And like you say, it is a little bit overdue. They're not, these little, the 2 youngest lions within this pride aren't relying on either of the mothers anymore. And that's why we could expect to see any of them give birth shortly. I can't keep track if we have seen or if anybody has actually seen the Matimbas mating with the 2 adult lionesses from this pride, but it could have happened without our knowledge, and they could be pregnant right now. And also something to look forward to is the 3 slightly younger lionesses. They are going to be sexually mature at any point now, and we could possibly see them give birth to their first litters, which will be great. The fact that 5 of them could all give birth in the next few months is a really exciting prospect. It could have a lot of tiny furry cubs in store for us. There's some oxpeckers that we can hear above us chirping away, and they've been quite vocal this evening. Liam's going for them, and he's not. They're a bit too far away now. As I said, it's quite a tricky area to follow them through, but in these little vehicles we can go some pretty amazing places, so we'll do our best to follow them, but it may mean at some point we're going to have to backtrack and loop ahead of them onto a road and try and wait for them there. I can only see 4 members of the pride now. The other 4 have all headed off, and I'm sure these 4 that are remaining will get up fairly shortly and follow suit. Well, on the topic of mating and cubs, Blair in British Columbia would like to know if it's possible for more than one male to mate the same female and almost take turns amongst several female that could be in season. Isn't this wonderful? Good question though, but usually, like I said, it'll only be one male that does the mating. I'm wondering where they're going to head to next. There was a herd of wildebeest on the quarantine clearings earlier today, and we're not at all far from there. That would be a good prey item for them to try and take down. This is Junior, the young male. You'll notice he's a little bit bigger than the lioness, and he also has this small mane developing. And he's not the dominant male, he's one of the sons born into this pride. And in the coming months we could expect his fathers to boot him out. He's almost overstayed his welcome already. So he's fortunate that he hasn't been booted out alone, because it will be testing times for him, not having his mothers, who are experienced and successful hunters, to help feed him. He's going to have to start getting a lot more involved in the hunting, whereas at the moment he can kind of take a bit of a back seat. Having said that though, he still does contribute greatly to hunting in certain circumstances. You could say when they are hunting buffalo would be one of his best opportunities to use his size and strength to help topple down that massive prey. And he certainly was involved in the last buffalo hunt that we got to see, but he came flying in only after the initial lioness had jumped on the buffalo's back. It is one thing that lion are extremely good at doing, sleeping, and they'll spend many, many hours every day in this position. (18 to 20 hours as an average figure that they will sleep daily. So to catch them on the move requires a little bit of patience. Pride only on the outskirts though, and maybe they will cause a little bit more life. Well, while these lions gather their thoughts and think about their next move, we're going to send you back to James with Sindile while there's still a little bit of light to film with, as James is not inclined to want to shine the spotlight on young Sindile. So why don't you head across to him and enjoy a few more moments with that young leopard.
Hello, hello everybody. You're back with Sindile. He's not doing anything specifically spectacular right now. I just thought we should come and have a quick look I'm not going to shine a light on him, of course, so we're just going to have a look here, say hi, and then probably bye again, and then you can have a look at the cats that are better in the night than the leopard. Legendre?
Yep.
Is that right? A bit more? A bit less? So a duiker did come wandering past, but it was interesting to me. The duiker is, you know, we tend to think of them as tiny little antelope, but they are, they probably weigh about 25 kilos, a big one. And it struck me that Sindile is probably about duiker size now. So although he looks a bit bigger when he stands up, he might weigh 30 kilograms now, but he's not a big animal yet. So those impala that he was looking at, which females averaging sort of 50 kilos and the males up to 70, no, he's a bit smaller than that. I mean, he's going to struggle to take something like that down at this stage of his life. So the beautiful sun has dipped below the Drakensberg Mountains and hieing its way down to the west. The night is, you can sort of see it creeping in from the east along with a couple of quite beautiful grey clouds, and you can see how Sindile is disappearing quietly with the light as his wonderful camouflaged pelage blends into the dappled, or the leaves all around that sort of grey soil in which he's lying. All is very quiet around here. I think he'll probably move around a little bit in the night. He'll probably just try and sort of, you might go and try and find a scrub hare or two. And remember, at night he'll be that much more vulnerable. The hyenas will tend to move around a lot more in the night time, and there's that den is not too far from here. I don't think there's anything at it at the moment. I know somebody went to check, but the hyena is something that he will have to watch out for quite carefully at night, so he'll be extra vigilant. He might go into a tree, but I think he'll probably just creep into some thick bush and make sure that he's very aware of what's going on. You can see his little eyes are quite heavy. As soon as he hears or smells anything, boom, he's awake again. So just before you left us, which was quite interesting, that I was just going on about how their coats, and those of the lions, and in fact many animals, seem to me to be specifically designed for camouflage in the winter. And the reason for that, of course, is that there's very little foliage on any of the vegetation. And what that means, of course, is that in summer they can hide behind things, whereas in winter they can't. And so they tend to be very well camouflaged in the winter time. Like if you think of the elephants walking through the grey bush, or this leopard walking through a dappled drainage line, especially in the winter time, they really do blend in perfectly well. Or lions walking through winter grass, that sort of tawny coloured winter grass, beautifully hidden, and not so much in the summer. If you find lions in the long grass, in the bright green, they're pretty obvious, but because the grass is so much thicker, they find it that much easier to hide behind vegetation. balance. Yes, I think they do play a role in balance. I think they play a role also in sort of moving around in the night time, especially that very fine movement when they're just, say, in the night time about to make a rush at an animal. When they're moving extremely slowly, they need all the sensory organs they can around their faces, in the front of their faces, so that they can tell if they're going to make a noise or not. And I think that's probably what it is. I think if you were to chop off one side of his whiskers, I don't think you'd find him unable to stand up straight and wandering around like a drunkard. I think it might have a slight effect on it, but I don't think that that's the major effect. I mean, I've certainly seen house cats with injuries that have, where they don't have whiskers on one side, and they don't tend to fall over too much. So I think it's mainly for that very fine movement just before they attack. That would be my understanding of it. Alright, so what we're going to do is he disappears quietly into this evening light. Is we're going to leave him and we're going to follow off down the road. I'm probably going to just pop in and see if there are any hyena at the den. Obviously we can't shine on the youngsters, but if there are any adults around, I will be sure to let you know. So we're going to head off across to the Nkuhuma Pride, who I believe stood up briefly and then were overwhelmed by the trials of their lives and lay down again. But I'm sure as it gets dark they're going to start moving around. And so if I find anything else, I'll keep you posted. Otherwise, go off to Scott and I'll see you later.
Welcome back. And aren't we lucky to be seeing such wonderful animals on today's safari? The lion had us falsely excited earlier when you came to us as they were moving, and not much has happened in the last few minutes since you've been gone. Although one lioness did appear to hear something or see something down to our right, and she got up and sat down and looked very intently into the bushes, but then lay back down again. So I'm not sure exactly what it is that caught her attention, but there could possibly still be some prey nearby. It's such a wonderful evening, and for their hunting, this means that it's not necessarily the best conditions. They'd prefer it to be a little bit windy, especially now that the vegetation is so dry. Every footstep that they take could potentially make a noise and alert their prey to their presence. So a bit of ambient wind can help them on a still evening like this. They're going to have their work cut out for them. Oh, big yawn from Junior. And scared to think that he's still going to get a little bit bigger than he is even now. Quite wide-eyed, that individual. One of the three in-betweeners. Well, that looks like it could be one of the bigger ones, and I'm wondering if she's going to get the whole crew on the move here now. Apologies, she also looks like one of the younger ones, not one of the adults, I don't think. And what are we going to see here? Junior has been attempting to mount some of the ladies in the pride. And could this be a show that this lioness is coming into season? it's not uncommon for both lion and leopard to have to seduce the males, and this appears to be like some form of seduction. Well, earlier we were chatting about why we haven't seen any cubs from the adult lioness in this pride, and we've just got an update which tells us some great news, and that was that one of these lionesses was seen mating with one of the Matimba males in November. So we can only wonder why have we not seen cubs. It's only about 100 to 110 day gestation period, and that update came from Georgianne in Illinois, so thank you very much. I wonder what it could have been. Possibly just like with humans, not every time people mate or animals mate will there be a baby conceived, so that could have happened. She may have had one of many different complications that caused her not to give birth, or who knows, possibly she did move off from the pride, give birth and lose her cubs in a very short period of time. It's not uncommon for predators' cubs to be lost to other predators, hyenas, other male lions. So I wonder what exactly did happen, but thank you very much for that update. She should have already given birth then, and we should have seen cubs. Why we haven't, I'm not too sure. Well, speaking of babies and cubs, I mentioned earlier that if all 5 of these lionesses were to give birth, there would be a huge influx in numbers to this pride, and would it be unsustainable? Is a question we've just got through from Dr. Debbie. And I don't think so, Dr. Debbie. I think it is certainly possible for them to feed all their new cubs, and that's the phlegm and grimace we've just seen that individual doing over there now, processing a smell, possibly some urine from another lion earlier. But to put things in perspective, Dr. Debbie, there's a pride of 42 lions not too far away from here in the Kruger National Park, 28 of which are cubs and 2 of which are actually white lion. One is about a year and the other is about 6 months. So imagine seeing that pride of lion of 42 with 2 white lions in them. And I guess one way of looking at it, Dr. Debbie, is that for each lioness that becomes sexually mature and old enough to give birth, they also bring with it expertise in hunting and therefore can contribute to the pride. Well, this is going to be beautiful. All of the pride, all of a sudden, are up and on the move. Just going to have to give a quick updates on the radio. Nkuhuma Pride. Okay, so Let's see where they take us. It could be an interesting off-roading adventure. Affirmative, Lex. No problem, Lex. I will stick around. Well, interesting. Junior's not at the back of the queue today. Usually he is the last lion on the move. Not untypical of young males or any male lions, really. They tend to hang out at the back. But tonight it's a lioness. Excuse me. Okay. So, like I said, it is going to get quite thick in here. So I want to try and do my best to stay with these lion. And we'll go up and follow the ones ahead. Let's see where they take us. Okay, well, Junior just popped out in front of us. And I'm guessing he is going to be following the scent trail of the other members of the Pride. Ooh la la. Okay, there, wildebeest. Okay, so just had to squeeze through that little gap there, and good to know that we've got a new viewer watching for the first time, and it's Mikhail in Cape Town. Good to have you with us, and it's actually one of Nikki's friends, and he would like to know, what have these lions been up to? They've been sleeping all afternoon, Mikhail. They've just started moving now, sadly into this very thick area in front of us, making it tricky for us to follow them, but they will hopefully pop out into a more open area shortly. Today basis on what the lion do get up to, especially what time they get active in the evening. Just a couple of weeks ago, when it was still light enough to not use lights, they caught a big Cape buffalo. But they were very hungry and had been hunting for many days before they got successful. Okay, I've just got a glimpse of one still moving in a westerly direction, so we're going to do our best to stay with them. As you can see though, it's not easy. There's a few bushes that are preventing us from going wherever we would like to. But as long as we keep an eye on them and get an idea of their general direction of movement, we should be able to keep tabs of them. A glimpse of one, but I'm going to keep going ahead. In the hope we can find a small clearing. Maybe I'll just pop out here, that would be nice of them. Craig Nkuhuma's on Mobile West through some very thick stuff from their last position. just come down Gallagher shortcut, that's where they're heading towards, but anything could happen between now and then. Okay, I think I've just seen an antelope. I needed to just make sure there and make sure that it wasn't a lion, but they could well know that this antelope that I've just seen is up ahead of them. So all we can do now is sit and wait in silence and wait for some action to unfold. If we were to shine the lights, we would be disadvantaging both possibly the lion as well as the antelope, depending on which one gets seen first. But the antelope we would be blinding, making it more difficult for it to see the lions, and if we were to shine the spotlight on the lions, obviously the antelope would see it.
I know.
Okay, well the good news is there's one lion that has popped up behind us, and we may just be able to get you a brief blur of it. Again, I'm not going to shine the lights on it because it will attract attention to it, but you can see the vague shape of a lion there through that cluster of acacia thorns. And what it could well be doing is looping around this antelope, so kind of like a pincer movement. And that is the benefit lions have of hunting in prides. They can encompass their prey, and hopefully some members will chase that antelope into the other ones. It's still very early. I can't see that lion anymore. VM, can you? Is it behind us now?
Moving?
It's moving behind us, so it is slowly encompassing whatever it was inside there. It looked like an impala-sized antelope, but it could have been a bushbuck and a nyala, or like I say, an impala. Difficult to say, and it was very thick. I just got a very brief glimpse of its eyes, and they were too close together to be that of a lion. And now we just need to wait and listen carefully, and we could possibly expect to hear the pads running over the soft grass. VM has seen the lion. He's going to try and show it to you. There we go. It's just behind the vehicle, and it's very low light, but again, if we were to shine the spotlight onto the lion, we would give away its position, and we want to try and be as neutral as possible and not aid either predator or prey. Lex, they're busy landering something here about 150 meters directly west of their last position. Affirmative, stationary lights off. Well, she's stalking towards it now. And wouldn't it be great to be able to see? But like I said, and I'll say it again just to stress, we don't want to have an impact on what's going on here. So now we just wait and listen. Other lion could be doing the exact same thing as her, but just from the other side. And whatever animal is in there is in trouble. Yeah, Lex, that I think should be perfect. Like I said earlier, it's a very, very still evening, and that makes it difficult for the lion now. They have to be so quiet to make sure whatever prey animal it is doesn't hear them. So even though it's very dark and the prey may not be able to see the lion, their hearing is very good, and any branch that breaks now could trigger the prey animal to run off. It's perfect conditions for us to listen to the chase though, and that's why at any moment I may stop in mid-sentence. Apologies, we've been having so much fun, we've just gone over time, so I didn't even realize. So if you do have to go somewhere, I'm hugely sorry, but we are going to stay for a few extra minutes and just wait for this chase to unfold. Lex, keep coming, and I don't know if it's possibly your best option to try and head north off that 2 track. I've just got some of your lights now. I'll just shine my spotlight towards you. Stand by. Okay, so I'm just helping Lex in, another guide, and he's being very cautious. He doesn't want to have an impact, so he was just wondering when he should come in and when should he switch off his lights. So I just needed to communicate that to him. And I'm sure it won't be too much longer before we hear a few footsteps. Some really exciting stuff this, and I actually quite like not being able to see exactly what's going on, because we can just imagine all the other lions encompassing whatever it is in there. You can pick an impala and an inyala in your mind. And what I can't wait to hear is that sound of the chase. We'll hear the running and the crashing of branches, and thereafter we'll know whether or not the lions have been successful. If they have, with a small item of prey like this, there'll be a lot of fighting amongst one another for their place at the dinner table. So we'll hear a lot of growling and grumbling. Copy that, Lex. They appeared to be stalking something just to the north of me, but it's so thick here that I couldn't even tell what's in there. It would be wonderful to know exactly where the lions are now, but again, I'm not going to take any chances. Well, it appears like the lion may have already moved off some distance from us. So maybe we've been left in a trail of dust. Well, Lex, I'm not sure if those alarm calls are from the lion. If so, they've moved quite far from me. Okay, copy. Okay, well, if something was going to happen, I think it already would have, and the fact that we have just heard some inyala alarm calling a couple hundred meters away from us means that what could have happened is the inyalas could have been moving off, and eventually the lion may have had an attempt at them, but they have now blown their cover. The inyala have alarm called, so we're going to call it a day, And wasn't it an exciting way to finish? Maybe we will get lucky and convert with some more hunting action on another day, but our luck has run out for now. Anyway, from myself, Scott, a big thanks to VM on camera, to Nikki and Kirsty in Final Control, as well as to James and Jean-Andre on the other vehicle, and of course to you, the viewers, who without your help and support, we wouldn't be here sharing these wonderful moments with you. Anyway, from us here with the Nkuhuma prides that have disappeared into the darkness, have a great day or evening depending on where you are, and we'll see you for the sunrise safari tomorrow.